Hey guys, welcome to Sopi Studio Umbiamas, conectando Aruba com o mundo via vídeo podcasting. Conectar conosco, compartilhar ideias e histórias para nos inspirar e para nos abrir. Sopi Studio é a plataforma de podcast na Aruba. Follow-nos no Facebook, subscribe no YouTube ou na plataforma de podcast preferida. Escute o podcast preferido que hora e onde está. Sopi Studio, powered by Credits, botiu ideia? Credits educava e prepara abo para vir um empresário exitoso. De business plan, guia personal e préstamo para negócio até com 100,000 forinhos. Vira para mês donho com Credits. Sopway. Passa na Sopway para o sop, salada, wrap ou flatbread e mais fresco. Com 7 localidades Norte Aruba. Nós está cerca de Ibo. Sopway. Swing Masters. Organizando events, conferences of weddings, mister de luz, sound, staging, DJ, trussing of flat screen, Swing Masters está claro para ser boa fiesta êxito. Swing Masters. E agora, Sopi Studio é plataforma de podcast de Aruba, está apresentar.
Boa tarde, boa noite. Welkom viaje mais num outro episódio de A.T.A Talks About. Maneira você tursa essa aqui podcast series, que nos conhecendo mais e mais de Aruba Tourism Authority, sua estrutura, seu departamento, e para mim o que me dá mais grande, a parte mais importante da sua renda. Meu nome é Tristan Avery e viaje mais você host para outro episódio. Maneira que acaba de mencionar durante a primeira série de episódio de A.T.A Talks About, nosso foco seria myths, misconceptions e a estrutura geral de A.T.A. Então, dentro de duas séries de episódios, nós enfocamos mais seria a trabounan que toma lugar na A.T.A e a personanan atrás de trabounan que toma haci, em diferente departamento. Maneira que você vai, me sou sentar ao em estúdio, pero me nota me só, me tem mais gente comigo. Também é um pouco diferente, mas nós acostumamos a episódios a gravar em papiamento. Para nós temos team members de A.T.A Norte America e por motivo aqui me vai switch na inglês que me permite me passar aqui rato. As I've just mentioned, today we're doing it a little bit different than other episodes. We're not doing it in papiamento. We have special guests from North America with us today. So this episode is recorded in English. North America is a very important market for Aruba, so we have very important guests, as I just mentioned. So let me welcome Ed Malone, the Area Director of North America, Leahs Giaquinto. Leah, you have to tell me if I'm saying your name right, your last name.
You did.
You did? Wow.
You did, Giaquinto. You did it well. Very, very
in one
nice.
take.
Yes.
Leah is the Director of Brand Communications and Media in North America, and we also have Kim Riddle, the Business Development Manager for USA. Welcome. Bombini, as we like to say in Aruba.
Thank you.
So how does it feel
It's
to
great
be on the show for the first time? We're doing this in English.
Well, I've been following it for the last 15 weeks. This is, and I mean, I know this is the first time it's being done remotely, Tristan. So congratulations to you and your team for pulling off. Technology is great.
No, it's all to the team. The team does magic behind the scenes. Ed, I heard indeed you are the #1 fan of A.T.A Talks About. So happy to have you with us as a guest. So I want to jump right into it and talk about the important stuff, the important work that you do as the North America team. But first, before we get into that, I'd like to, if maybe you have something to share with us, with the viewers and the listeners on any updates with regards to the tourism. How is it going? How are the numbers? It's summer, obviously. So how is it going?
Well, we just received our numbers for the month of July, and the great news continues. We for the last 4 months we have continued to surpass the 2019 benchmark, and we call 2019 the benchmark year because it was so great. But now, April, May, June, July, we have surpassed those numbers globally, and here in the U.S., it's even that much that as impressive as we would have as we hoped and that we would hope to have seen. I think in the month of July we have 109% of our 2019 numbers. This is after multiple 100% plus numbers the last 3 months. So the results have been extremely positive, extremely encouraging, and it looks like that trend is going to continue for the rest of the year. We had a slow start, as we know, at the first quarter because of the remnants of COVID and Omicron and what have you that affected us in the first quarter. But suffice to say, the trend that we've seen the last 3 or 4 months, 4 months plus, we expect that we're going to make up for what we did lose the first quarter, and that's a tribute to the island, the people, the hotel, the product, everybody behind the scenes that makes it work. So we're thrilled for what's happening from this market, but obviously the success that some of our other markets have had seen as well.
I think this is great news. I mean, obviously we've all been through the pandemic. We're still going through the remnants of the pandemic, but hearing these numbers, seeing them, it's great news. Usually around this time, people expect starts to become a lower season here in Aruba with regards to tourism. And us locals, we like to see ads in the newspapers or on social media for the local specials at hotels, but I've been seeing less and less of them, and I think this is it has to do, of course, obviously with the great job that the A.T.A is doing, but also that visitors are coming back. Bumped into a tour operator, and he was telling me it doesn't look like it's going to slow down like the previous years, and that September is still looking pretty solid. So it's a good forecast.
Yep. Seasonality for Aruba, pretty much unlike many other destinations in the Caribbean, seasonality, low season, high season, really hasn't existed for many years. But to your point, even to the extent that there may have been a lull period, the number of weeks and days that may have been the case, you're right, seemed to certainly less, and the hotels are certainly doing a great job and success results of making up for what was lost over a couple of years.
Awesome. No, we look forward to continue getting these numbers, and I hope in upcoming episodes we can continue hearing the good news. So,
Tristan, if I can add in right there, being in sales, the one comment that I hear in the field all the time is that people are having a difficult time. The travel advisors are having a difficult time finding the availability at the hotels in these fall months. So in September or October, they're not able to find the hotels. I'm getting people that are calling saying, Kim, what's going on the week of such and such? And I'm like, nothing. We're just blessed. It is the high occupancy at the resorts. So it is something like Ed said, and like you've said from the tour operators, that the island, the occupancy levels are just much higher than what we have seen, and that seasonality has gone away.
I think that's a good position to be in as an island that depends so heavily on tourism. That seasonality basically is something that's getting less and less something to worry about. And we're gonna jump into exactly that in a bit. But before we do, of course, I want to introduce my guest to everyone. Don't know who's gonna start. Maybe the one who has less time working at A.T.A, or do we do gentlemen first? Just to switch it up a bit.
I'm the only one. I'm the only guy. I get the pleasure of leading some wonderful professional women. I am the lone wolf, so to speak. But having said that, it's my pleasure to be able to do so. So, but I'll defer to the women.
Okay, no. So I'm going to do the honor of asking Leah to please introduce yourself. Let's give the listeners and viewers a taste of who's Leah, what's your background, and then we'll jump into the more routine stuff that you do at the A.T.A.
Yeah, absolutely. So I studied business in college in New York. And out of college, I went straight into marketing, which digital marketing at that time was like the hot new thing, if you will. So I have had many years working at larger media companies and agencies, leading the media departments for them. So I've worked on very large brands such as Audi and Chevrolet, just to name a few, and I've worked on smaller brands as well across all different industries. I was really lucky to have Aruba as my client, and I actually pitched the business years ago with my previous agency, and we won the business. And I worked on the account for about 7 years, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful account to work on. I led the media department there specifically for digital, and then I became the director for all of the communications at the agency, leading the marketing for Aruba Tourism. I was lucky enough then to create really wonderful relationships and certainly get to know the island very well, and understand the product overall and who our consumer is and who our consumer could be. And really work well with the on island team. So a little more than 2 years ago, I had the pleasure of Ed reaching out to me, and we had a conversation about if I would ever be willing to work directly for the A.T.A. And I was just absolutely thrilled for the opportunity just to be considered to work directly for Aruba as a brand. So I've been here for a little over 2 years, working obviously with the North America team that you see here, and some others that are not on this call as well. And then also work really closely with the team at HQ, the digital department, certainly our CEO, our CMO, global teams as well. It's just been really wonderful to collaborate with all of these great marketeers here. So I'm really enjoying my time, and as I'm not sure, here at Aruba, I oversee, along with Ed, the brand communications for North America and paid media, which is a pretty large part of our investment overall for our market.
That's awesome. So when I looked at your LinkedIn profile, of course, I do a little bit of research myself before interviewing my guest. I saw indeed you have a little bit over 2 years at the A.T.A, but actually it's almost 10, seeing that you've been working previously in a different role for the
That's
A.T.A.
correct. That's correct. I have, yes. It's been about 10 years for me working on Aruba, which is really time really goes by, as they say, when you're having fun. And it truly, like, I have to say, Aruba was always one of my best clients on many levels when I was agency side, and it's just been so wonderful to work for Aruba directly. The people that I work with are extremely intelligent and very smart, and have pushed me to work harder and think harder. And I love Aruba just as a destination overall. So it's really my pleasure to bring my expertise and work on the brand.
And it makes your job easier.
That's right. It makes it very enjoyable. It doesn't feel like a job, in all honesty. It's been great.
Awesome. Thank you, Leah, for your introduction. Now we know a little bit more about you. I'd like to introduce Kim and get a little bit more about Kim, because Kim also knows the A.T.A quite well.
Yes, thank you. I'm Kim Riddle. I am the business development manager for the U.S. I oversee a team of 6, but I started as a tour operator selling the destination. So after going to college, I was going to the university and then shifted over, went to travel school. got bit by that travel bug. And from there, I started working for a tour operator that sold the Cayman Islands. And I was like, okay, this is the side of things to be in. I love this. And she was a small mom and pop company. We were exclusive for the Cayman Islands. And for some reason, she shifted over to this beautiful little destination called Aruba. So in May of 1990, I was introduced to the island of Aruba. I left her company and started with another small mom and pop company that sold basically Central America. And because of my experience with Cayman and Aruba, they added on Cayman and Aruba. That company sold and merged to another company, and I was lost in the merge. So in 1997, I called up the tourism board, who had just recently opened an office in Houston, and Todd Payne was running that office at the time. And we had Air Aruba flights. I don't know if you remember that back then.
Oh, I do.
And I said, Todd, you do, right?
Yeah, it was good times.
I was like, Todd, I'm going to use this, right? It was great having it. Well, Vyasa had pulled out. We used to have Vyasa flights and all this other stuff. So I called Todd and said, I'm going to use you as a reference. And he's like, wait a second. Tina, who was working for him at the time, had just put in her resignation as her husband was transferred to Santa Fe. And I need somebody, the destination, the travel advisors, you do great presentations. And so Charlie and the higher ups in Aruba at the time, Sanju and Jan Vaness, gave the approval for me to be brought on board. And what a blessing, because I had 9-month-old twins who are now 25 today. And like I said, it was God opening a door, and I've been with this wonderful island since. So I've grown from being a sales manager to the business development manager overseeing the team. And I cover wherever I need to go. But from starting out with the 17 states out west, shifting to the central Midwest, and then overseeing whoever I need to, it's fantastic. So I love the island, and you'll hear in my presentations that I do, it feels like home, that the locals in Aruba welcome me as almost like a local, and it does truly feel like an island home when I come back to the destination. And that's why I've stayed with Aruba for 25 years. It's something that it's in my heart, it's in my soul, and you hear it when I do these presentations, whether it's a small presentation or a large presentation in front of 2,000 people. It's something that I speak to from my heart.
That's great. That's great. That's great. What I'm sensing a trend that joining the organization of A.T.A is like coming home.
Yes,
definitely.
Let's see if Ed also agrees, and his story also aligns with coming home. So Ed, I know previously by through one of the other events that I used to organize back in 2015 or 16. I met Ed in New York at the Dutch Embassy. Such a wonderful time. It's been a while since I've seen you in Aruba, Ed, but the next time you're here, let us know so we can catch up over coffee. But please, Ed, introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers.
Gosh, well, thank you. Well, my history of the Aruba goes back 35 years now. Company I work for, being in the hotel business, that was actually my avocation, if you will, was I was a hotelier. I actually consider myself a hotelier by trade. And the company I worked for at the time bought a hotel in Aruba, and I was in Minneapolis at the time, and they said, would you be interested to come to Aruba to help us take over the hotel in a transition? And I said, sure. So I went, and they said, do you have a passport? And I said, no. Get one. In those days, you get a passport in 2 days. Now, if you're lucky, you'd get one in 2 months. Then I kind of like waited for the phone call to come, and it didn't really come. But finally, it did. And literally, I was one day or the next. I went to Aruba, and after being in a role as general manager of what was then the Americana Hotel. They asked me if I wanted to stay or go back to Minneapolis. That answer to that question took just a millisecond, because I was there and I've been there ever since. I was very fortunate to be have a front row seat, if you will, for the development of the tourism industry in Aruba back in the late 80s and 90s. I'm showing my age, but I was a very young person when I think I was like 16 when I went to Aruba in those days as in that role as general manager. But in any event, I had a front row seat to the development of tourism. I got to be very much involved with the Aruba Hotel Association back in the 90s as a active hotelier. I actually was president of AHATA for 5 years, and then also had the honor of being the president of the Caribbean Hotel Association from 1998 to 2000. So not just locally, but very much regionally involved. Was honored as a Hotelier of the Year for the Caribbean back in that period of time. And I just stay very involved. I always like to say myself, I went to Aruba as a job, but I found a home, and was very much involved for all these years in various aspects of the industry. And when A.T.A was in the process of being sui generis, I was appointed to the board. And after being on the board of directors for a couple of years, they said, would you be interested to go to New Jersey to help us out on a temporary basis? I redefined the word temporary. I went to Aruba originally temporarily, and I came to New York temporarily. But it's been one of the most rewarding, most amazing experiences in my career, and I have been blessed to be able to work to do this job, but at the same point in time, work with some amazing professional people here in the market, but as well with the team in Aruba. And it's I go back to Aruba frequently for always business. I still don't remember the going to the beach in Aruba is something I hear people talk about, but I honestly never have time to do it. But having said that, it's a pleasure to always go home. And my next trip is in October for our next meeting with our partners and stakeholders in the destination. So
I nailed it, Ed. Joining A.T.A, the organization, is like going home.
Yes, absolutely. And the other thing is that we have a lot of our team members who have been with the organization here in our office in North America. Our two people who work here in the office, they're here 26 years and 20 years respectively. We have other members of the sales team who've been with us for 20 plus years. It's a great organization, and we're blessed to have the people, because once they come, they get the Aruba bug, and they stay with it, and that's also what makes it work.
Yeah, they never want to leave. That's great. Ed, let me continue with you.
Just like our tourists, they never want to leave.
Now we're going to jump into that about the tourists that repeat. But before we do, Ed, tell us a little bit more about the role you play in the North America team. How big is your team? And so we get a sense of what is it that you do.
Our team, obviously as a result of COVID, the dynamics of the team has changed. We are currently a team of 11 people. Here, most of our people, our sales team, which primarily work under the direction of Kim, work remotely out of their homes. We have a sales manager in Boston. We have another one here in New York City, the greater New York City area. We have somebody in Atlanta who handles the Southeast. We have someone in Los Angeles who handles the Western region, Kim herself, and she'll talk more about her responsibilities in the team. And then we also have somebody who works out of Toronto for the Canadian market. So that's our sales team. And then in addition to Leah, we have Irene Maduro, who has been with our team for just right at 10 years now. She moved from Aruba here back in 2013. She's our marketing manager. She works primarily collaborating and working and executing the planning and execution of our marketing partnerships with 26 plus tour operators and our airline partners. That is a major undertaking, and she does a terrific job from that aspect. And then Leah, who will talk more specifically about her role in media and digital marketing. But from my standpoint, I get the pleasure of leading and managing that team. Primarily, working with the team and leading the effort relevant to the development, implementation, execution, evaluation, revision where necessary of our marketing plans and strategy, our tactics. I obviously manage the office, the financial administration. Obviously, we have a very extensive budget across many of our various marketing channels, which requires constant monitoring. We're now in the process of developing our corporate plan and marketing plan for 2023. I work a lot along with Leah on our relationship and working with our agency partners. It's really, and our tour operator and airline partners, as I mentioned, and our island stakeholders. So I'm kind of like the centerpiece of a very intense but collaborative group of people, and it's when I was just recently out for personal reasons for the last several weeks. I'm just now back. Being outside the loop for 4 or 5 weeks was really quite a step back, because I didn't know what to do with myself. Being so intimately involved for as long as I have. But at the end of the day, as I said earlier, I get the pleasure of leading and managing a group of wonderful and terrific women who really have their fingers on the pulse, and who I can count on and rely upon to provide information and insights into what's happening in the market. And that's what it is. We spend a lot of time, following and analyzing, travel trends and, the market, what's happening in the market relevant to, the impact of what's happening in the U.S. on the economy and how that impacts, what we do in travel, the airline partners. It's just there's so many pieces of the puzzle, and but at the end of the day, the results speak for themselves.
Ed, we're happy that you're back and that you're recovering well. But it's a testament being out 4 to 5 weeks. You have a team to depend on, and the job continued. And I think for you, it was easier to leave it at that, and that the job continued. So, compliments to the team, because I think that's one of the foundations in any organization, having the trust in your people that the job can continue whenever and wherever, especially in these times. I want to go over to Kim and ask Kim, so a little bit more about your role and responsibilities, and especially you've been mentioning how you had the West Coast as one of your responsibilities, and that grew, and that now the entire USA, or maybe even the North American market. Maybe you can explain to the viewers and listeners what is your role and what are your responsibilities, and for us to have a better understanding that when we say A.T.A, North America, sales, etc., that they know exactly who we're talking about and what we're talking about.
Of course, yes. No, that's a great question. And to explain that better, we are the field. We are the boots in the field. We are the people who are out there on a daily basis. So whether it is for the consumer shows, reaching the consumers in a personal touch, because of course marketing is reaching them digitally and other areas, we are that touch person. So whether it's at a bridal show or a consumer travel show, participating at these shows, setting up those shows, selecting which shows we're participating in, or through the travel trade themselves. So going out and educating the travel advisors, knocking on we used to knock on the doors, but many are not back in their doors or they've closed the doors. So we're reaching them in other ways. So still calling on travel advisors, taking them to lunches, connecting with them, having updates with them. So meeting them in a coffee shop, or other directions by emailing them, just regular communications with them. Each of us have a different territory. So even though I oversee the team, I myself have a territory as well. So I now have about 15 states in the US, from Pennsylvania over to the Dakotas down to Texas. So each of us are responsible for a large area of the US where we call on the different travel advisors. Of course, we can't call on everybody. So we select those who are obviously selling the destination already, those who are the higher end, who have the more affluent, who have the higher spenders. So we align ourselves with marketing and with the initiatives that headquarters is going in. So we want to make sure we're bringing the travel advisors who have the clients that align with Aruba's best client for the destination, because we want to make sure when they get to the destination, they're going to spend money. We want to make sure that they are going out and they are doing the tours, that they are going shopping, that they're going to the restaurants, because we want to make sure that we have the right client coming to the destination. So we're not just blanketing and going to every travel agent out there. We want to select the right ones. And so this is what we are very selective on when we are picking who we do call on and who we invite to presentations and so forth. So we have to make sure that we are maintaining the right database. We're constantly updating our databases. We don't have a support team who is doing this for us. So we have to also make sure that we're doing all of our accounting when we're doing our presentations, or all of our budgeting, like Ed was expecting and talking about for the budget. We do our own as well, and then submit that to Ed. So we do have our own accounting that we have to do. So there's a lot at the back of the house that we do at the same time. So there's a lot that goes behind it. So a lot of us are presenting and, doing those sales calls, admin. There's a lot of work behind it, but we are the main people that are out in the field, both for the trade as well as the consumers.
So going through the pandemic and everyone being at home, working remote, how important is it to do those sales moments in person, having that touch point with the potential client and visitors?
Right now, very. During the pandemic, everyone was online. They were doing these presentations. Zoom became huge. And of course, that's when we even launched our Travel Advisor Facebook page, which has grown and is a wealth of information. And travel advisors love that. And they are the go-to. And I'm A.T.A. Houston. I'm the admin. And so people rely on that information. But people are ready to be live again. The consumer shows we're doing again, whether it's bridal, whether it is a consumer travel show, whether it's a food and wine event, they're so happy to see somebody live, to get that information live. They really want to be able to connect with somebody. People are ready to travel. They are traveling. You're seeing it on island. They are traveling. And so they really want to get some of that information, even though they can download it. And a lot of our shows, we do have the QR code, but sometimes they just want to physically speak to somebody and ask that additional question, just to see somebody touch a piece of paper or pick something up. They want that physical element again, and they're excited to be back out there and to just feel the enthusiasm with everybody around, even if they're not collecting anything, just to that whole emotion when you're at a show and you're just feeling it, and it gets you more excited to travel again. And that's what gets us excited as well. As soon as you get us back out in the field, we thrive. That's the best thing for a salesperson.
Amazing. I think that's also the best way to give people the Aruba bug. The only bug we would like to catch.
Oh yes, most definitely.
Thank you very much, Kim. So Leah,
yes,
I thought you were the one with less years. Obviously, I think you still are, but you have 10 years at A.T.A, the organization. Maybe you can tell us about how your role changed from agency to your current role, what you used to do and what you do now, and what are your responsibilities?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So when I was agency side, I really handled mainly the paid media strategy overall. So I worked for the media agency at the time, and then there was a separate creative agency, a separate PR agency, and then of course the internal A.T.A HQ team that handled websites, organic social, SEO, etc. So my role at the agency side was basically leading the paid media overall. So any of the marketing spend that we had direct to consumer, and I would work with, actually there was a research agency also at the time. So I would collaborate with all of those other agencies to get all different types of data that would basically help us say, okay, this is the product that we have. This is the consumer that we want to target based upon the goals of the island. And I would take all of that information. I'd analyze, of course, like market trends, etc. And then I would put forth a paid media strategy that would help us reach our target audience and our consumer. And I would work with the creative agency on identifying what that creative, so the actual imagery that you see out there, as well as the different positioning lines and what are we going to communicate to the consumer on what Aruba has to offer and why they should go there. So I had a large media team behind me at the agency side that would work with all of our media partners and negotiate and buy the media on behalf of the A.T.A. Then we would analyze that media on a very consistent basis and constantly update the plan as we needed to. And it would be definitely a lot of collaboration with all of those different agencies or within A.T.A HQ and A.T.A North America. So it was quite a lot of responsibility, but my direct responsibility, as I mentioned, was the core focus was the paid media. When I came on to work for the A.T.A directly, my core focus still was definitely the paid media, and that was what I was brought on to do. But then in working as a company, if you will, the A.T.A is very collaborative, which is amazing. So I manage the agencies that we have, which are our paid media agency, which also is now our creative agency, a different team, but now it's under the same agency. I have a dotted line with Shady to work with our PR agency. And then we also have a research portion that also is with Big Village, formerly Engine. And then there's organic social. And then there's SEO and the website, which is handled by A.T.A HQ. So that's I think I'm getting everything at this point. So all to say that there's many different areas within our marketing funnel that A.T.A North America handles. And so it's basically one big puzzle, which we call our communications framework, that we develop and put forth that says, this is who we want to talk to, the consumer, to reach our island goals, which are to bring, obviously hit visitation goals, but bring the right consumer, as Kim was saying. We don't just want to bring in any visitor. We want someone that is going to spend on island for us. And to treat our island well. I think that's a big piece also. So I work with the agencies on developing our campaigns after we establish who it is that we want to go after from a consumer perspective, and developing those campaigns as it relates to our creative that we have in market, the message that we have in market, the content that goes on our website, the content that goes on our organic social, and make sure that it all works well together so that it's a seamless path that the consumer will take from the moment that they hear about Aruba and start to educate themselves on who Aruba is and why Aruba vacation is right for them. All of those different steps falls under really my responsibility to make sure that we're talking to the consumer the proper way. We are providing them inspiration to go, and then providing them with all of the tools that they need to ultimately book a vacation. So I don't have a quote unquote a team per se like Kim and Ed do internally, but my teams are really our agencies, and then the HQ teams as well that we collaborate very closely on from a digital perspective to make sure that from a website, organic social, SEO are all working hand in hand.
Great. Even stepping outside of digital marketing. No, I think that
Yes.
you gave us a great explanation of what you do and how important it is, the work that you do. And what I like about it is how you define that it has to be seamless, whatever it is that you do, but not only for you in digital marketing, but the entire team in North America. And basically collaboration is key, even if it's only internally within your departments, but as an entire team of North America. If you don't have this collaboration internally and with your stakeholders, it might make your job even a little bit more difficult than it already is.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it makes my job so much quote unquote easier, just because we do have a very collaborative environment that the consumer doesn't know marketing, right? We're marketeers all, and we're looking at it with one lens. So it's very important that as the consumer takes that journey from inspiration to booking, that it all, as I mentioned before, is seamless. And without collaboration, we can't make that happen. So it's a testament to everyone. Of course, A.T.A. North America, as well as A.T.A. HQ, that we're able to do this. And of course, all of the agencies that we manage.
Yeah. And for those who are listening and watching us, A.T.A. HQ is the Aruba Tourism Authority office here in Aruba. Just to be clear, I want to switch and ask you if you can help us define what is the North American market, and please explain how important this market is for Aruba.
The North America market is the prime market for Aruba. When we say North America, we talk about U.S. and Canada. We tend to focus on U.S. by default, but we do have neighbors to the north who have always been an integral part of our success. Canada in itself is coming back at a much slower pace than the U.S. For various reasons, just in the way that they handled and reacted to the impact of COVID, but definitely coming back strong. But the U.S. itself represents over 80% of the visitation to the destination. That is, coming out of COVID, it's the market that opened first and came back the strongest. And subsequently, we've seen the success of some of the other markets that also have come back. But I think we all recognize that the U.S., primarily, we know who our key markets are in the U.S. We're talking about Boston and the greater New York area, and Philadelphia, and Chicago, and other, Southeast, and how important they are. How the airlines how we work with the airlines, and how they provide service to the destination. We have 14 gateways out of the U.S. It's really across the board. The way that we've been able to react to the impacts of COVID in this case really has been quite rewarding in some way, but also we worked hard at it. I always used to say, maybe with a slight exception to COVID, whenever there have been economic downturns or tragedies, 911s. The 911, for instance, the economic crisis of 2008 to 2010 and 11. Aruba has always been one of those destinations, one of the few destinations who was probably one of the last ones to be affected and one of the first ones to rebound. And that's a tribute to for lots. That's a tribute to many reasons. But like I say, COVID's somewhat different because that affected everybody in many similar ways. But the market of the U.S. And nationally, and how we've been able to diversify this market, it's much more than Boston and New York. How we've expanded to other parts of the country over the years, and how we continue to look at how we want to diversify in the future. Unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, I mean, obviously it's a function of airlift and seats and airline support, and that's obviously a function of the airport itself. So there's lots of intricacies involved in how we market and how we want to improve market. I mean, just following up on what Leah just said a minute ago, it's one thing to have this great team and all the great things that we do, but at the end of the day, it's also effective market and efficient marketing, and that's one of the reasons that why we've been as successful as well, because we really work hard to be as effective as possible, as efficient as possible, and make the best value for the money that we do spend in the market.
Because I can imagine competition is very fierce in all landscapes. Yes. I mean, in sales and in digital marketing.
Absolutely.
That's right, and it's gotten even more fierce than what it has been since COVID. Yeah. So we really have to work hard.
Yes. Yeah, coming out of COVID, the fact is that travel to the Caribbean has been extremely strong. I think recently we've seen how Caribbean is the one region in the world which has probably been one of the biggest success stories just overall. And certainly the success that we've seen at Aruba, I mean, we've seen there's other success stories in the region as well. But we're a leader, and we've always been a leader, and we expect that we'll always be a leader moving ahead.
So I can also imagine not only competition being fierce, but seeing that the North American market is 80% of the visitors here in Aruba, that also puts a pressure on you to not only perform, but seek out those opportunities constantly.
Yes.
Oh, expectations are always high. Whenever there's a downturn, where can we look? What can the U.S. do to I mean, like I say, I say it in somewhat in jest, but it's a fact, and we know how strong this market is. We know what the expectations are. Like I said, we have the airlift, and the fact that I think, if I'm correct, I mean, this year we expect to see 6 to 8%, I think, of percentage over in 2019 of the number of seats coming into the island. And like I said, we could probably do more, and certainly the challenges and the strain that it puts on the airport itself has been intense. And we certainly are excited about the changes and developments of what's going to happen with the airport facility over the next few years. But in the meantime, we just have to find ways to be able to manage that. And like I say, everybody does a great job in trying to look at all those issues as well.
Great. Ed, you mentioned success. So obviously it's to the team that results is a success. A successful result is because of the team. But I want to hear from Kim and Leah. How do you define success in your role, not only for your team, but also for yourself professionally and in your role? Don't know who wants jumps in first. I'll look at. Go ahead, Leah.
Yeah, I could jump in. Success is measured in different ways depending on the type of marketing that we're doing. So, of course, we're all going after the goal, the ultimate island goal, which is hitting our visitation numbers and reaching that quote-unquote right consumers. So someone who will come to the island and spend. That's what we want. But we have goals that are set for each area of our marketing mix. To make sure that we are always pushing ourselves. And so from a paid media perspective, within all of the different media channels that we're in, there's specific goals that we will have. and what's interesting is, since I've always worked on the business, and also coming from someone that has worked on other brands outside of Aruba, we always have to create our own benchmarks, which is a very good problem to have. So what we have, like, the industry will put out benchmarks, good, better, best type of for the different areas of marketing, but Aruba has always surpassed the best benchmarks. So it's been interesting because we always have to push ourselves to go beyond that and just continue to do better and better. And so there's different ways that myself and the team will constantly be different areas that we monitor to say, okay, we're performing well. And certainly there's things that we do, because we're an innovative marketing company. There's things that we test and learn. So we set expectations, and we measure those expectations on a weekly, monthly basis, and we pivot. I mean, I think that it's really a testament to the A.T.A that, especially with the pandemic, if we see something that is not working or something that's really working well, we are very nimble and pivot very quickly. So for me, we set those benchmarks on all the different levels, and we monitor that and make changes to our strategy as needed. And I think for me personally, it's definitely hitting those goals for the channels that I oversee. And also just for the island, it's are we hitting those visitation numbers? Are we hearing from the hoteliers and businesses on island that business is well and they're enjoying the consumer that's coming? And just making sure that everybody is educated on what we're doing and is happy with the efforts that we're making, and they're seeing the fruits of our labor on island. That is very important.
Great. And Kim, are your or how you define your success or your team's success, are they similar to Leahs, or do you have specific ways you define your success?
Yeah, we have goals as well. Of course, our goals cannot necessarily be met just by our efforts. It's also done with the marketing efforts at the same time, but they can vary in different ways. Some of it could be a success when we have just brought some advisors down to the island on what we call our fam trip, familiarization trips. We do bring them down, I would say, on a regular basis. This year we have 4 trips coming up with 6 advisors each. But when we hear the success stories from them, where they come back and it may have been their first time to the destination, and they come back and they're like, I've already sold a trip to Aruba. Success, because it all came together. They're now able to sell it much easier now, while they may have sold it before, but now they've seen it, they understand it better, and they're able to sell resorts within the destination that they have not been able to sell before. Or when we're at these conferences, such as Global Travel Marketplace, where they actually vet advisors who are selling $1 million worth of business each, and you're having one-on-one appointments with them, and you're able to tap into a new advisor that you've not had before, and you see an opportunity to then have more business, and they want you to do a webinar for them and their entire team of 35 advisors. That's a success. So it's measured a little bit differently for us as well, because it's growth opportunities, it's new business, so there are many different ways. It can just even be, we've just done a presentation either by ourselves or with a partner, and 2 weeks later you're getting an email saying, I just booked a trip to Aruba because you sold me on the destination while I was at the presentation. Many different ways, like I said. So it could either be in the numbers that we see at the end of the month, at the end of the year, or some of these other ways I've just said.
How easy of a sell is Aruba, Kim?
Depends on the place within the U.S. Up in the Northeast, where there's a lot of airlift, easy. I mean, people are just walking in saying, well, I want Aruba. And then you get to other places, you get further out west, and I mean, they're interested. They like the destination. They've heard of Aruba, but it's a harder sell because of the air. So for those that have been there, obviously that's, they're ready to come back. And that's what I tell everybody that I speak to. If you can get them to Aruba for the first time, we as a destination do our best in turning them into a repeat visitor, and that's all it takes. So just get them to Aruba one time, and I promise you, you have somebody who is going to, while they're either on island, be calling you saying, I want to stay, or they're going to be already ready to book their return trip to the destination. And they're going to be telling their friends about it and showing it on their social media platforms. And that's all it takes is one trip.
And maybe I'm totally wrong on this, but I've been hearing numbers of between 60 and 70% repeat visitors here in Aruba. Are these numbers right, or?
No, it's a little overstated.
A little overstated. I think they're excited.
I mean, we used to. We've always been proud of the fact that Aruba has the highest level of repeat visitation in the Caribbean. Having said that, it's in the high to upper 40%, 50%, maybe 50%, 48%, whatever. And obviously a contributing factor to that is the success of the timeshare industry. But even if you take out the timeshare numbers, it's still a 25 to 30% repeat factor of just from non-timeshare. Extremely high numbers, and that's something that we should be very proud of.
Nice.
And that's a tribute to a lot of that's a tribute to the product and the people who, as Kim said, we're responsible for getting the people there. They're responsible. The island is responsible for making sure they can come back.
Yeah, awesome. And we're more than happy to welcome them back. I mean, coming back home is always a nice feeling. Before we jump into closing out this episode, because they're giving me the signal. Recently, some of you were here in Aruba for the global meetings. Of course, success is defined by how you set up your goals, you plan for it, and actually execute. So, can you please share what came out of these global meetings? What are the plans for 2023? What can we expect? Or maybe there's something you can already share.
Yeah, we Leah and I joined the rest of the global marketing team, Europe and Latin America, plus our colleagues from Aruba in mid-June. It was the first time that we've had a chance to be all together in the same room in several years, and that in itself was a terrific experience. But it gave us a terrific opportunity to share information, look at trends for all markets, and also talk about where we are coming out of the pandemic. I mean, we talk recovery, but now it's beyond recovery, and we are now currently just in the final process of finalizing the corporate plan for 2023, and it's really on how we build upon the success that we've enjoyed the last several years, even with the pandemic, but building upon our more specific in how we look at the various consumer segments that we're looking at, that Leah referred to. How we continue to look at building that first-time affluent, high-value customer. That continues and will always be our prime basis of all of our strategy. But like I say, we're in the final stages now of finalizing the 2023 plan. Something that has been going on the last several weeks, and which in fact I have a call this afternoon to hopefully finalize at that as well. And that's going on for all markets. It's obviously for the North America, but as well for Latin America and Europe.
Great. Now we wish you all the luck in finalizing the strategy, and we hope it comes to fruition in the near future.
Yeah, I don't know if Leah wants to add anything. To that.
No, I think you hit it, Ed. We're looking forward to continuing the success. I mean, it was wonderful for me personally to be a part of the global meetings. That was my first time ever being part of them in my role, and just to hear from my colleagues and strategize really on different wins that we've had. Small wins, big wins. in our markets and how we continue to build on them and all work towards the same goal. It was wonderful, and I think 2023 is going to be just yet another great year for us. And the difficult part is that I think we've all been pretty successful. That it's like every year, it's like, well, what's next? What are we going to do differently? How are we going to beat this? And each year, we still continue to do that. So we're looking forward to continuing that trend.
That's great. So 2023, you're looking good, Aruba.
Yes,
I think so.
Ed, before we started the recording, you said there was something you wanted to debunk. I'm going to give you the opportunity to do that. So, Ed, the floor is yours.
I'm not sure. Maybe the word is not debunk, but I'm as I've been listening to my colleagues talk about, during this series, A.T.A talks over the last several months. One of the things that I really hope that comes through, and it's something that I learned myself. I mean, I've been involved with tourism for many years in Aruba and in the private sector. And it really wasn't until I had the opportunity to come to work with the A.T.A that I really got that much more of an appreciation for the A.T.A and what it does and the contribution it makes to the success. Being on the inside now over the last 9 years, I just can't emphasize enough, and I really hope that this kind of forum, A.T.A Talks and others, really can promote and talk, really emphasize further the importance of A.T.A and the value that this group of people provides to the success of this destination. It's whether it's in the A.T.A team in Aruba, here in our market, or Europe or Latin America, it really is a concerted global effort, and the success that we've enjoyed as a destination it has a lot to do with the infrastructure, the leadership, the management, the team that's been involved over the years with the Aruba Tourism Authority. Not to forget the importance of the contribution that's made by the island itself, especially coming out of COVID, the resilience that the people of Aruba and the hospitality sector has experienced, and at the end of the day, the economic impact that's created by tourism can't be underestimated, and I just can't emphasize enough. And like I say, it's a tribute. The success is a tribute to so many people, and I just wish, and I really hope that A.T.A in the entire organization, that people really get a sense of greater appreciation of the great work that this organization does. And I'm not talking about specifically our market, but just the whole team overall. I can't emphasize enough, and like I say, I'm proud to be a part of it.
Ed, thank you very much for sharing that with our listeners and viewers, and with me. Ed, Leah, Kim, thank you for being on the show. It was truly a pleasure. I hope you enjoyed, and we hope to see you soon in Aruba. And please allow me to switch back to Papiamento so I can close out this episode. Episode ay kitong produksyong di A.T.A e Sopi Make Studio. Thank you biyaha mas ni production team, sound engineer e tour es na quasi podcast aqui possível. Escuche episode aqui e outro episodes riba nas plataformas de social media e riba po plataforma de podcast favorito. Thank you biyaha mas e until the next episode.